Hey guys and gals, I'm going to try to do a quick video and show you guys what I've got going on. So I had these tires on the shelf. They were on the back of my Pathfinder when I was going to put a V8 in the Pathfinder. I'm no longer doing that, so they're too wide. I took them off and got the size tires that I wanted. So these tires I wasn't going to use for anything, and they were going to go to waste. These wheels come off of a Nissan Murano or something, I don't know, but they were given to me. These are 18s, and the tires are a little bit too wide for these wheels, but they were able to get the bead to seat after working with them for a good while today. In order to put those on this trailer that I've got, this is just a little lawnmower trailer. It's a tilt trailer, and the center cap had to be removed, and I had to cut out a little bit of this to fit over that hub right there. And I just used a little rotary tool that is laying right over here, and that aluminum will embed itself in here, and you may have to pick it out. It's a mess, but so anyway, got those fitted on. Ended up having to use a 1-inch. I put a 1-inch spacer in here, bolted that on. These wheels fit, everything's good to go. And this is my spare. So in order to put my spare on here, back spacing was wrong, and I spaced this out, and I did a horrible job. This looks terrible. I do not want to run this anymore. I figured I would show you guys what I'm going to do. I like to do in my shop a little different than the normal. So what I'm going to do is put this bearing in here. It's like what is inside of a pillow block bearing. I don't know exactly the technical name of this, but anyway, the outside spins to the inside. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this pipe right here. It's not quite perfect, but I'm just going to weld it in, so it doesn't have to be perfect. There's not going to be a whole lot of weight on this, just that spare spinning. It's going to spinning spare. And this was fine from the distance here. That was my backing plate to the trailer. The tire does clear, so I can maybe take a measurement of that to that backing plate and figure out where I need to be with this bearing and this right here. Mainly that shaft, because the bearing, I'm going to just cut all of this crap out that I've put in. I'm going to put that bearing right there on the inside of this. So I'm going to have to cut that out to fit this bearing, and then I'll just weld that top and bottom. And if I weld super slow, I won't interfere with these bearings. I've done this in the past. I usually make hose reels out of these. I run the air hose or garden hose through the middle of that and have it spinning. And a quick connect right there, it will swivel so it won't wrap up the hose. So this didn't fit right, and I was trying to weld it in, and it's terrible. And then I went to put the wheel on, and my lug nuts are fighting me. I didn't leave quite enough room here for the lug nuts to stick through to get them on with just a socket. And what I've got is these lug nuts. So this lug nut is a 12mm on a 1.25 thread. I've got these studs that came out of this package right here, and these are pretty short, but they were on my shelf. I'm going to run them. They're a little bit loose, so I'm going to have to maybe drill a hole and run these in through the back side of a plate, and then I'll just probably tack weld that. And if I use 1/8 inch or something, that will take up the slack that I need here, because that stud is just fitted on like that. So alright, what I'm going to do is find a piece of metal, and I'll cut you back on. I got a little bit further along here. I just took the plasma cutter and I just started whittling metal away with the plasma cutter until this bearing fit in there pretty decent. So now I'm going to weld the sides here and here. I'll probably weld this face right here. Hold on, I'll cut you back on. And the bottom, I'll weld along the face and try to weld down in here. I don't like welding upside down. My welds upside down usually don't look very good, and it's pretty trashy, really. So I'm not a professional welder, but they usually don't break. Well, like never, because they don't have to look perfect, I guess. But anyway, so I got a piece of metal, I laid it down here, and I took my wheel. I've got it on this stool right here because I wanted my metal to be on something and then pressing to the back side of this wheel. So with that done that way, I've put a mark. I've skipped that one and I put a mark here. So that's what I'm going to do. And there are my 2 marks on my piece of metal. It's kind of thick, but it will be perfectly fine. I'd rather it be a little bit thick, as long as it's not too thick for those studs to not come through. But I think everything's going to be great. Most likely what I'm going to do is just burn a hole with the plasma cutter, and then I can put these studs in through those holes, and I will put lug nuts on the other side of the wheel. I'll just go ahead and bolt this on. That way everything is lined up to the wheel. The studs, the distance these are apart, if they were too close or too far apart, it may not bolt up right. So with it bolted to the wheel, I know everything will be lined up like I need it. And with it bolted, I can then, on the back side, you'll see the stud. I can weld the back side of that stud in, and this plate will be ready to go on this pipe. And then I can cut the pipe to the length that I need, stick it in the hole, and then weld it to this middle part. It's pretty much going to be done then, basically ready for paint. All right, I'll catch you back on. My welder's really fighting me. I think my tip is all messed up. I'm going to see if I've got another tip. These welds are not doing good, but that's going to hold good enough where I can get it off of this wheel. I've got it all tight right now, so everything's lined up whenever I tack that together. And I will start tacking this. I need my welder to work better before I try to do anything. This right here, if I weld too heavy, get it too hot, then this won't spin anymore. If I don't weld it in good enough, then it won't stay. So there's a fine line you got to get on those bearings, but if I can do it, then most other people can too. This is really front heavy, and this fell over into the gravel earlier today. It's just a trailer, so it'll be fine. All right, I'm gonna get going here. I'm getting this welded in, and I'm going slow. Not as slow as I probably need to, but like I said, it's just a lawnmower trailer. So I'm cooling it off with water as I go. And I'm trying to weld inside here so I don't have to go underneath, but I think I'm gonna end up having to go underneath. And let's see, I put this backing plate back on here. I need to find exact center, so I just eyeballed it and I drilled a hole. That hole is very close to center. So at this point, what I'm going to do is take that backing plate back off of there, and I will see about putting this on it. And all right, we'll see where we can get with that. That needs to be perfectly centered or the wheel will wobble up and down. And also this edge, I'm going to use that factory edge because I know it's straight. But if I weld this in crooked, then the wheel is just going to be all wobbly all over. So everything has to be pretty exact. All right, I'll cut you back on. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I wrapped that in masking tape. I'm going to stick that in that hole, and I'm going to tap that in with a hammer. Get that to the height roughly that I need. Sorry. Yeah, that's pretty much where we need it. Maybe a hair too far in. I'm going to cut that masking tape right there at that edge. Masking tape's going to catch on fire, but I'm not really concerned about that. If I can just get this straight. It is not straight. That is not straight. So I've got to get that straight before I weld that. I've pretty much got all this welded in. And I've got this started. It is not perfect. I just welded it in too heavy. I got it too hot. So I'm going to have to kind of baby my welds in here and get that solid. Once that is solid, this pipe will be where it needs to be. It will be as straight as I'm going to really get it. And then I can start trying to put that circle in the middle of that pipe and see if I can start tack welding this. I'll like tack weld it once and then spin this and see if it's going to be straight. And I can still bust it off and weld it again if I need to, which most likely I could take. I've never really got these right on the first time, so this could take me a good minute, 15-20 minutes of test fitting in this, and maybe I'll eventually get it where I want it. What I could do is spin that. If I had a dial or something that I could set a magnet or something coming out, and then maybe something set up in the floor where whenever I spin that, it barely touches that, and then if it barely touched that, then I would know it was pretty straight. And then I could give it 2 or 3 tack welds so that it would hold the weight of a wheel, and put the wheel on and test it again before I fully weld it. I'll catch you back on in a minute. Alright, I went ahead and put that on the best that I could, and I refit it about 3 or 4 more times, and it's still not perfect, but being that this is just a lawnmower trailer and it's kind of dumb to put all this time in it, I'm just going to roll with it, I guess. Yeah, because it's rolling. Anyway, I can hold my finger right there, and you can see that it's pretty straight. It's not 100% accurate, but it does spin pretty decent. So now what I've got to do is not move that any at all and get the lug nuts off and pull the wheel off and finish welding. So I've got it tack welded inside here in a few spots, and what I was doing is I put my finger right here, and I could tell when it would get closer and further away from my finger, that's when I knew that it was off. So when it got further away from my finger, I knew exactly where to hit it. So I would tap it here, and it would, a lot of times my weld would break in there. But I kept at it for 10-12 minutes, and now I have it. So it's got, I don't know, they balanced this, but it's got a spot it wants to be at. So whatever, the wheel's supposed to be balanced. Whatever. So anyway, I'm gonna just be real careful getting these lug nuts off and pull this off without, hopefully, without moving that shaft, because if that shaft moves, if this plate moves, then whenever I weld it in, it's not going to be right. But, alright, we'll hope that it welds in good, and I'll cut you back on in a minute. Alright, it was pretty obvious that this plate was off balance, because I had a big cutout. So I just got a piece of metal and welded that in, and I sprayed some paint on there. And what I'm going to do now is just spray some WD-40 or something in that bearing, and then I will hang the tire on there, and we will see how well it spins after I heated it up again. Alright. Alright, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and just consider this fixed. Alright. So there is how to overbuild something without it costing you a lot of time or money. Till next time, y'all have an awesome day.